আচ্ছা, আমরা আগেও আপনাদেরকে বলেছিলাম যে আন্তর্জাতিক অপরাধ ট্রাইব্যুনালের যে প্রসিকিউশন এজেন্সি, চিফ প্রসিকিউটরের অফিস, সেখানে এই চিফ প্রসিকিউটরকে এবং তার প্রসিকিউশন এজেন্সিকে সাপোর্ট করার জন্য, অ্যাডভাইস করার জন্য, এবং আমাদের এই বিচার প্রক্রিয়া যাতে করে আন্তর্জাতিক একটা স্ট্যান্ডার্ড অনুযায়ী হয়, এইখানে যাতে কেউ কোনো প্রশ্ন তোলার সুযোগ না পান, সেই কারণে আমরা এখানে চিফ প্রসিকিউটরকে অ্যাডভাইস করার জন্য একজন ফরেন কনসালটেন্ট আমরা অ্যাপয়েন্ট করেছি চুক্তির মাধ্যমে, যিনি আমাদেরকে আন্তর্জাতিক স্ট্যান্ডার্ড অনুযায়ী এই বিচার প্রক্রিয়া চালিয়ে নেওয়ার ব্যাপারে, প্রসিকিউট করার ব্যাপারে যিনি আমাদেরকে সাহায্য করবেন। সেই কারণে আন্তর্জাতিক খ্যাতিসম্পন্ন একজন ফৌজদারি আইন বিশেষজ্ঞ, যিনি ফর্মার ইউগোস্লাভিয়ার ওয়ার ক্রাইমস এবং ক্রাইমস অ্যাগেন্স্ট হিউম্যানিটি এইসব ব্যাপারে মামলা করার অভিজ্ঞতা সম্পন্ন, যিনি বিভিন্ন দেশে বিভিন্ন আন্তর্জাতিক ট্রাইব্যুনালে মামলা পরিচালনা করার তার অভিজ্ঞতা আছে বিশ্বব্যাপী। সে কারণে মিস্টার টবি ক্যাডম্যানকে আমাদের এই প্রসিকিউশন এজেন্সির অ্যাডভাইজার হিসেবে আমরা অ্যাপয়েন্ট করেছি। তিনি বাংলাদেশে এসেছেন, আমাদের সাথে মিটিং করছেন বিভিন্ন বিষয়ে, পলিসি নির্ধারণের ব্যাপারে, স্ট্র্যাটেজি নির্ধারণের ব্যাপারে, তদন্তের ব্যাপারে, সব ব্যাপারে আমাদের যা কিছু করা উচিত সেই ব্যাপারে তার সাথে আমরা পরামর্শ করছি, আলোচনা করছি, এবং এই বিচার প্রক্রিয়া স্বচ্ছভাবে আন্তর্জাতিকভাবে যাতে কোনো রকম প্রশ্নের সম্মুখীন না হয় সেই ব্যাপারে আমরা তার সাহায্য গ্রহণ করছি। একইভাবে আপনারা জানেন যে আমাদের আইনে আমরা সেটাও করেছি যে ডিফেন্সের পক্ষ থেকেও তারা যদি এই ধরনের কনসালটেন্ট নিয়োগ করতে চান, তাদের পক্ষে অ্যাডভাইস গ্রহণ করার জন্য সেটাও তারা করতে পারবেন, কিন্তু তারা কোর্ট রুমে লয়ার হিসাবে সরাসরি করতে হলে বার কাউন্সিলের পারমিশন ছাড়া করতে পারবেন না। টবি ক্যাডম্যান আমাদের পক্ষে আছেন, তিনি আমাদের অ্যাডভাইস করছেন। আজকে তিনি এসে আমাদের সাথে ফর্মাল মিটিং করেছেন। তিনি ইচ্ছা প্রকাশ করেছিলেন যে মিডিয়ার সামনে তিনি কথা বলতে চান, সে কারণে আজকে আমরা তাকে নিয়ে এসেছি, তিনি এখন আপনাদের সামনে কথা বলবেন।
Thank you very much. So, first of all, just let me say it's a privilege and an honour to be assisting the Chief Prosecutor and his team. I have been appointed by the Law Ministry to serve as a Special Advisor to the Prosecution Section based on my previous experience in dealing with these matters in a number of different jurisdictions. This is my second visit. I was here a couple of months ago to meet with the Chief Advisor, with the Law Advisor of the Attorney General, and at that time the newly appointed Chief Prosecutor, to advise on some of the areas that I think needed to be addressed. Certainly from my previous experience of the ICT under the previous government was obviously not a good experience, and there were a great deal of criticisms as to how the process was politically manipulated. What was very clear from my discussions with the interim government that this is very much a new chapter, and a chapter aimed towards justice, not retribution and not revenge. For that reason, the ICT Act has gone through some amendments with a view to ensuring that international standards are maintained, the highest standards are maintained, and that any investigation, prosecution and trial will be transparent in accordance with the law and conducted by independent and impartial professionals. Having had meetings the last 2 days, I believe that there are still amendments that need to be made. I think great steps have been taken already. A lot of work needs to be done. I've had the opportunity to discuss with the investigators and the prosecutors this morning. I'm hugely impressed with the work that they've done. The work has been done to a very high professional standard, but what I would say is that the people of Bangladesh, and the media in particular, you have to be patient and you have to allow the prosecutors and investigators to do their job properly. These are very complex cases. These are very important cases. It is essential that they are done properly, and it is essential that those that are standing with me today are allowed to do their work without external interference. That being said, this process is going to require the full assistance and support of the international community. I've discussed with the United Nations, I've discussed with the UK, US embassies, and with the EU, and there is a great deal of support for this process because it is regarded as being a credible process and a much needed process to re-establish the rule of law in Bangladesh. I think you can all see the progress that has been made so far politically and legally. That process will be continued, and I will do whatever I can to support this office to ensure that these trials meet the highest international standards. But again, you have to be patient because these are complex matters, complex investigations that are going to take a great deal of time. The final point I would make is that we have had discussions with our colleagues at the International Criminal Court as well, based on the prosecutor, Mr. Karim Khan's recent visit to Bangladesh and his meeting with the chief advisor. There will be close cooperation with the International Criminal Court. But let me say this, it is essential that these trials are conducted here in this court, in Bangladesh, so that the whole of Bangladesh can see the standards that are being applied and can have faith in their institutions for the first time since 2009. But we will be working closely with the International Criminal Court, we will be working closely with the United Nations and other institutions to ensure that all the necessary support is provided to the prosecutors, to the judges, and to ensure that anyone who faces trial before this court receives a fair trial, a transparent trial, and has all the rights that they are entitled to under the Constitution, under domestic law, and under the international treaties to which Bangladesh is a state party. I'd like to thank you very much for your time. We obviously have a lot more work to do. I don't know if it's appropriate to take questions. I'll leave that to the Chief Prosecutor to decide.
I have two questions. Amendment brought to the law. Is it enough for fair trial to maintain international standards?
I think the amendments that have been made are essential to ensuring fair trials. I believe that there are still some amendments that need to be made, and in consultation with the Chief Prosecutor, we will be presenting our view to the law advisor as to additional amendments, additional essential amendments that are necessary to ensure the fullest fair trial possible.
Okay. There is another question. You are one of the most expert of extradition. I want to know what is the process of bringing back Sheikh Hasina to face fair trial.
Thank you. So I do have some experience as a prosecutor in extradition matters. Obviously, there is an extradition treaty between Bangladesh and India, but we also are aware of what has been stated so far. I don't want to prejudge what India is going to do, but of course it is the role of the Chief Prosecutor and this office to ensure that charges are brought, that an extradition request is made, and obviously if extradition is refused, we will have to then look upon whether she is tried in her absence or whether in fact we look to the International Criminal Court to provide assistance in trying her. That is a matter that's not my decision to make, but certainly we would hope, and certainly we would make a call to India as a democratic state, that they respect the rule of law and they respect a lawful and proper request for her extradition when an extradition request is made.
I have a question. I'm curious to know if it's possible to extradite the fugitives, including Sheikh Hasina, while retaining the death penalty in the process. This is my first question. And my second question to you, I guess, your prior engagement with the defense team in the last, whether I should say the last one, would impede people's pursuit to justice.
So I'll deal with the second question first. So my experience of working previously for the defence at this court has shown me where the legal framework and the practice needs to be changed in order to meet the highest international standards. As a barrister, as a member of the Bar of England and Wales, I have a professional responsibility to uphold the highest standards of professional ethics and conduct, and that is what I will do. I have agreed to assist the prosecution and to advise as much as I can to ensure that that process is maintained.
Secondly, on the death penalty.
The first question in relation to the death penalty. Now, obviously, we are aware that for a number of states, particularly European states, that there is a refusal to extradite or to provide evidence in relation to proceedings where the death penalty is maintained. Now, of course, that will have to be a discussion that the government will need to engage in, and whether it is appropriate to maintain the death penalty in these proceedings. And it will have to be a question as to whether, if they maintain the death penalty, whether they will lose the support, the absolutely essential support of European nations and the United Nations. Of course, that's not a decision for me to take. That is a decision that affects the government, and I understand that is a very topical issue to have. But certainly a decision will have to be taken as to whether it is appropriate to suspend the death penalty for these cases, to issue a moratorium, or whether the nature of these crimes are such that there will be a demand for the death penalty. Ultimately, it's a matter for the judges to decide as to whether the death penalty should be applied or not.
Sir, I have a question, please. Sir, we know it's the international court. Is it possible to make bridge as a judicial bridge to international criminal court and in this court?
So, the first thing to recognise is that that Bangladesh is a member of the International Criminal Court and has been a member since I believe 2010. So, the International Criminal Court has jurisdiction over Bangladesh if Bangladesh is unwilling or unable to prosecute themselves. The question will be whether, in light of certain individuals being outside of the jurisdiction, whether they can be brought to this country, and whether it is then more appropriate for the International Criminal Court to issue warrants of arrest, as they have done in relation to Vladimir Putin and Benjamin Netanyahu recently. So that will have to be a question that will be asked at a later stage. But the one thing that I would say is that the International Criminal Court is not the answer to all problems. Even if it was to pursue a case against the senior leadership of the previous government, it would not be able to prosecute everyone. So that means that the vast majority of those who have been accused of crimes will have to be prosecuted before this tribunal. But it will have to be a complementary relationship between the International Criminal Court and the International Crimes Tribunal here.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Earlier you refused from this tribunal and government, Awami government. This day you are come here as a heroic hero. So how do you feel now?
This is the last question.
I have to say that when the student revolution started, and I was watching very carefully what was happening, and then I received an invitation to visit Bangladesh. I have to say that I accepted that invitation with some trepidation. But what I can say is, since I've been here, what I see is a new country. I think it is something to be very proud of, which is happening. I think Dr. Yunus, in particular, leading the interim government, has taken great steps to re-establish a democratic process in this country. We have full confidence that this particular institution is being done properly. It was quite a moment for me to walk into the tribunal based on my previous experience. But as I said, it is a privilege and an honour to be here, and I will do whatever I can to do what the Chief Prosecutor and everybody else needs to do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. আজকে তো ইস্যু তো শেষ